For all but the well-off, living in an African city can be dispiriting. Home is often a cramped shack in a fetid slum. Getting to work, if there is any, means navigating rutted streets and manic traffic. Given all this, it would not be unreasonable to assume that few people would want to live in Africa's cities. Yet every year, millions gamble on swapping a prospect-free rural life for a potentially fortune-changing urban one, however Dickensian. If African cities are creating, the future looks even more forbidding. Africa's urban population has trebled since 1990. Over the next 26 years, it may expand by another 900 million people. By 2100, 5 of the world's 7 most populous cities could be African. Lagos, unnavigable at the best of times, may be home to 88 million people. In theory, urbanization should bring many benefits. The country typically gets richer as its people move into cities and get more productive jobs. But Africa has largely proved an exception. Wages may be higher, but urbanization has done less to reduce poverty and transform Africa's economies than it should have. As cities burst their seams, advocates have long argued that building new, smart ones on their peripheries would help alleviate such problems. The Chartered Cities Institute, a non-profit organization, reckons that if done correctly, such projects could accelerate growth, encourage investment, create jobs and lift millions out of poverty. Chronic underinvestment, poor urban planning, corruption and municipal ineffectiveness have crippled existing cities. Starting afresh does therefore have its appeals. After all, similar initiatives, most famously in Shenzhen, helped unleash spectacular growth in China and parts of Southeast Asia. When it comes to building new cities in Africa, however, reality sometimes struggles to match the hype. Hope City, a $10 billion tech city meant to house Africa's tallest skyscraper, should have been completed on the outskirts of Accra, Ghana's capital, by 2016. Despite earning awards, it was never built. Akrite City, near Uganda's capital Kampala, was conceived on a similarly grandiose scale, with shopping malls, a 50,000-seat sports stadium, and a signature golf course with seeds for the greens flown in from Florida. Little of the project was ever realized. Last year, the company behind it filed for bankruptcy. Such failures are hardly the exception. Many never move beyond the design stage, even those that do risk becoming perpetual building sites. The most visible aspect of most smart cities is roads with nothing on either side. There is no ready manual that predicts whether or not a new city project will succeed, but if there is one country whose experience might come close, it is Kenya. Unveiled in 2008 as a $15 billion smart city project, Konza Technopolis was supposed to be the heart of Kenya's Silicon Savannah that by 2020 would create 100,000 jobs and add 2% to GDP. 3 years and many missed deadlines later, there is still far more evidence of Savannah than Sinicon. By contrast, Tatu City, on the northern outskirts of Kenya's capital, Nairobi, is flourishing. Some 23,750 people already live, study or work there, and 78 businesses have made it home. Tatu and Konza were conceived at the same time. Each at roughly 5,000 acres is of a similar size. Both aspire to house populations of more than 200,000 people, and both have been designated Special Economic Zones, or SEZs, meaning that the businesses they house are eligible for tax benefits and other incentives. Konza's proprietor is the state. Tatu City is Rendeva, a big private urban land developer. During Konza's troubled existence, promised government funding has failed to materialize, while politically connected bigwigs have been accused of cashing in on the project. Initiatives led by the private sector, however, are disciplined by the market. If they don't make it work, they go out of business. Location matters. Shenzhen succeeded in part because it was an outpost of Hong Kong. Likewise, Tatu, some 20 kilometers north of central Nairobi, is better plugged into the capital and its labour market. CCI Global, a big African outsourcing firm, is building a 5,000-seat call centre in Tatu, partly because the development is close to Nairobi's densely populated northern suburbs and 2 nearby universities. Konza, by contrast, sits in splendid isolation, about 80 kilometers southeast of Nairobi on the Athi Plains, where you are more likely to see a giraffe than a human being. Infrastructure matters too, in a country where such things are often unreliable. Tatu City boasts its own water supply, energy grid, and internet network. A lot of megacities try to build everything at once. Finally, the rule of law must prevail inside new ecosystems. Tatu City's land ownership is transparent. Konza's, until recently, was not. Many residents welcome Tatu City's regulated environment. Tatu works because it has the freedom to set its own rules. It is more than just an SEZ, the concept that has mostly underwhelmed in Africa. Experts categorize it instead as a charter city, a loosely defined term that in essence describes an urban development with enough freedom to bypass weak state institutions and shape its own governance. In a state like Kenya, where property rights are flimsy and bureaucracy arbitrary, Tatu City offers comforting predictability. It is a sort of haven in the jungle. Nairobi is notorious for its crime, but Tatu, for the moment, is safe. The barred windows ubiquitous on houses elsewhere in Nairobi are not yet in evidence here. Freewheeling Nairobi types who venture into the development can initially be aghast to see speed limits strictly enforced. Rule breakers even have their wheels clamped. A strict no littering policy means Tatu's streets, compared with the rest of the metropolis, are eerily clean. No new city will directly answer the needs of Africa's urban poor. Some do not even pretend to.